Ashes of the Archive. Chapter 1. The Desolate Library. In the heart of a city, now a mere skeleton of its former glory, stood the Grand Library, or what remained of it. Its once majestic walls, adorned with intricate carvings and gilded titles, lay crumbled and forgotten, a stark testament to the world's untimely demise. Ava, her footsteps echoing in the desolate street, approached the ruins with a mix of reverence and desperation. Ava was no stranger to the hallowed halls of knowledge. Before the world fell into disarray, she was an archivist, a guardian of history and stories. But now, she scavenged through the remnants of civilization, driven by a relentless quest to find the mythical, last book. Rumors whispered that it held secrets vital for rebirth, for healing a world torn asunder. The air was thick with the scent of decay, a pungent reminder of what once was. Ava pulled her scarf closer, filtering the air as she stepped over debris. The sight of the library, its grandeur now a shadow haunted by memories, made her heart ache. She remembered the days spent within its walls, the rustle of pages, the quiet hum of studious minds. Now, all that remained was the sound of wind whistling through broken windows, carrying whispers of lost knowledge. Ava navigated the wreckage with a practiced eye. She had been here before, many times, each visit unearthing a piece of the past, a fragment of hope. The library, in its heyday, was a labyrinth of knowledge, and she knew its secrets well. Her eyes, adjusting to the dim light filtering through the dust-covered skylights, scanned the area. Suddenly, a glint caught her attention. Beneath a pile of rubble and torn pages, something shimmered in the sparse light. Ava's heart raced as she carefully excavated the area. There, partially hidden under a collapsed shelf, was a small metal box, ornate and unscathed by the chaos that surrounded it. Her fingers trembled as she opened it, revealing a map and a series of cryptic notes. Ava's eyes widened in realization. The map detailed unexplored sections of the library, areas that might have survived the destruction. The notes, though vague, hinted at the last book's location. This was it, the clue she had been searching for, the first real hope she had encountered in her long quest. As she stood amidst the ruins, clutching the map close, Ava felt a surge of determination. The last book was more than a myth. It was the key to a new beginning. And she, Ava the archivist, the scavenger of lost stories, would be the one to uncover it. With the map as her guide, Ava ventured deeper into the library, each step taking her closer to the unknown, to a future that might yet be rewritten. The chapter closed with her silhouette disappearing into the shadows, a beacon of hope in a world shrouded in despair. Chapter 2. Encounters in the Ruins. Ava's descent into the library's lower levels was a journey into the heart of darkness. The air grew colder, the silence deeper, as if the very ruins themselves were holding their breath. Every step was cautious, every turn a potential trap. She knew the perils that lurked in these forgotten corridors, not just the crumbling architecture, but the desperate souls who roamed these parts, each with their own story of survival. As she navigated the labyrinth of shadows, Ava's thoughts were on the map and the notes, a puzzle waiting to be solved. The idea that the last book might be more than just a compilation of knowledge was both unsettling and intriguing. It whispered of possibilities beyond her wildest imaginations, of secrets that could change everything. The first trap sprung with a suddenness that left her breathless. A network of trip wires, almost invisible in the dim light, unleashed a cascade of debris. Ava dove to the side, narrowly avoiding being crushed. Her heart pounded in her ears as she lay there, amidst the dust and echoes of her close call. It was a stark reminder of the dangers she faced, not just from the instability of the environment, but from those who had turned this quest into a deadly game. Regaining her composure, Ava pressed on, her senses heightened. She couldn't afford another misstep. The deeper she delved, the more she felt the weight of the unknown pressing against her. The library was like a creature of the old world, its bones creaking and groaning, its secrets hidden in the shadows. It was in one of these shadows that she encountered another scavenger. He was a young man, barely more than a boy, his eyes wide with fear and desperation. They stood for a moment, assessing each other, two souls adrift in a sea of chaos. He spoke of his own search, his words a mixture of hope and madness. He believed the last book was a gateway, a portal to another time, a chance to undo the apocalypse. Ava listened, her mind racing. Each story, each rumor added layers to the mystery of the last book. Was it a book at all, or something more profound, a symbol of what was lost and what could be regained? The encounter left her unsettled, but she had no time to dwell on it. The library was a maze of dangers, and she had to remain focused. She dodged more traps, some crude, others disturbingly ingenious. It was clear that she wasn't the only one searching, and not everyone was willing to share their findings. Her journey took her to the very bowels of the library, to a section long forgotten, its books turned to dust, its shelves a graveyard of memories. Here, the air was thick with the scent of mold and decay, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of the upper levels. It was in this gloomy abyss that she found her most significant clue yet. Tucked away in a hidden alcove, Ava discovered an old terminal, miraculously still functioning. Its screen flickered to life at her touch, revealing logs and diaries of the last archivists. They spoke of a project, a plan to preserve knowledge not in a book, but in a digital haven, a sanctuary of information immune to the ravages of the physical world. Ava's mind reeled at the implications. The last book was a metaphor, a symbol of hope and continuity. It was the collective knowledge of humanity, stored not on paper, but in bytes and bits, hidden away in this digital vault. Her revelation was cut short by the sound of footsteps, heavy and menacing. Another group of scavengers had found her, drawn by the light of the terminal. They were not like the boy, not driven by hope but by greed. Ava barely had time to react, her instincts kicking in. She shut down the terminal and fled, her heart pounding, her mind racing with the newfound knowledge. The chase was a blur of shadows and adrenaline, a desperate race through a labyrinth of danger. Ava's knowledge of the library's layout was her only advantage, and she used it with all the cunning and agility she possessed. She emerged from the library's bowels, panting and disheveled, but alive. As she looked back at the imposing structure, her resolve hardened. The truth about the last book was within reach, and she was more determined than ever to uncover it. The chapter closed with Ava disappearing into the twilight of the ruined city, a solitary figure against the backdrop of a world waiting to be reborn. Chapter 3: Revelation of the Archive. Ava's journey through the ruins of the city led her to a nondescript building, its facade betraying none of the secrets hidden within. Her mind was still reeling from the revelation at the library. The last book, a metaphorical ark of knowledge, was not a digital archive as she had believed, but something far more profound and unsettling. Inside the building, the air was stale, heavy with the weight of untold stories. Ava's footsteps echoed in the silence as she navigated the dimly lit corridors. She felt like an intruder, trespassing into a realm that was meant to remain hidden. In a room, bathed in the soft glow of emergency lighting, she found it. Or rather, him. A young man, his gaze as ancient as the books Ava once cherished, sat surrounded by a myriad of screens and equipment. He looked up, his eyes reflecting a mixture of wisdom and weariness. Ava's first reaction was disbelief. You're the last book. Her voice was a mix of skepticism and awe. The man nodded, a bitter smile touching his lips. I am what you seek. I am the archive, not of books or digital bytes, but of flesh and blood. My DNA is the vessel for humanity's greatest knowledge. The revelation was staggering. Ava struggled to comprehend the magnitude of what stood before her. A human being, engineered to be a living, breathing compendium of human knowledge. The ethical implications were immense, the potential power both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "Why you?" Ava asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man's story unfolded like the pages of a book she never knew existed. He was the result of a project, conceived in the final days of the old world, a desperate attempt to preserve the essence of human achievement. Scientists, fearing the loss of human knowledge, had turned to the most resilient of all storage mediums, the human genome. But how can one person carry so much? Ava asked, her mind racing with questions. It's not just about carrying knowledge, he explained. It's about understanding it, interpreting it. My mind has been engineered to comprehend and retain vast amounts of information. But the burden is overwhelming. Ava saw the weight of his words in his eyes, the burden of carrying the hopes and dreams, the successes and failures of an entire species. He was a living library, a treasure trove of information that could rebuild the world or doom it to repeat its past mistakes. The ethical dilemma was clear. Such knowledge in the hands of the wrong people could lead to unimaginable consequences. Yet, if used wisely, it could be the key to humanity's salvation. As they talked, a connection formed between them, a bond forged by the shared understanding of the power of knowledge. He spoke of history, of science, of art and philosophy, his words painting a picture of a world that once was and could be again. But with every word, Ava felt the danger that this man, this archive, represented. He was a beacon, drawing the greedy and the desperate, those who would use him for their own ends. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. They were not alone. The building, once a sanctuary, was now a trap. Ava's instincts kicked in. She knew they had to leave, to find a safe haven where the archive could be protected. As they fled, the man's words echoed in her mind. I am not just a repository of what was. I am a hope for what could be. But only if the knowledge I carry is used for the good of all, not the gain of a few. Ava made her decision. She would protect the archive, this human embodiment of knowledge. It was not just about preserving the past, it was about safeguarding the future. The chapter closed with them disappearing into the shadows of the city, a guardian and a ward, bound by a shared destiny to either save or doom what remained of humanity. Chapter 4. The Choice and the Future. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the broken landscape, Ava sat in contemplative silence beside the human archive. The air around them was thick with the weight of unmade decisions. Outside, the ruins whispered of a world that once thrived, now nothing more than a memory. Ava's mind wandered through the events that led them here. The haunting corridors of the Grand Library, the echoes of a world lost, the faces of those struggling to survive in this new reality. Each memory was a piece of a complex puzzle, shaping her understanding and the monumental decision she now faced. The archive, a living, breathing repository of human knowledge, sat quietly beside her, his eyes a well of depth and wisdom. His presence was a constant reminder of the power and responsibility resting in her hands. What will you do, Ava? He asked, breaking the silence. His voice was soft, yet it carried the gravity of their situation. Ava looked at him, her mind a battleground of conflicting thoughts. To protect him would mean keeping a reservoir of knowledge hidden from a world that might desperately need it. Yet, revealing his existence could unleash a myriad of dangers, potentially dooming the remnants of humanity to repeat its past mistakes. Her internal struggle was intense. The world outside, with its crumbling edifices and silent streets, seemed to hold its breath as she pondered. She thought of the beauty and potential humanity once held and the downfall that their arrogance had wrought. As the darkness deepened, Ava's decision remained unspoken, her thoughts obscured like the night enveloping them. The archive watched her, his eyes reflecting the gravity of their situation. Ava stood, her silhouette blending with the shadows. Her gaze lingered on the archive, a complex tapestry of emotions playing across her face. It was a look that could be interpreted as a solemn promise or a heartfelt farewell. The world outside remained still, a canvas of ruin and hope. Ava's figure against this backdrop was the embodiment of the crossroads at which humanity stood. Her choice, whether to safeguard the archive or to unveil the wealth of knowledge he possessed, was a whisper lost in the wind.